The market was alive with color and noise, voices of sellers shouting over each other. The smell of cooked food mixing with the sharp scent of alien spices, but in one shadowy corner, far from the busy paths. Lyria sat alone. Her stall was small. Just a rough wooden table with a few baskets of bright fruits. They were fresh and sweet. But no one came close when people passed by. Their eyes moved over her like she was invisible, or worse, unworthy. She kept her head down, arranging the fruits again and again, even though they were already in neat rows. It was easier than looking up and meeting the judgment in their eyes. Her fingers shook slightly, not from cold, but from the constant weight of shame. Lyria's people believed strength and beauty were signs of worth, only tall. Powerful females with sharp features were seen as breeding material. The rest, like her, were treated as if their lives were less important. Whispers followed her wherever she went, soft enough to pretend she couldn't hear, but sharp enough to cut her inside. Small one, weak one, they would say, a waste of space. She had learned to ignore them, but today her chest felt heavier than usual. The sun above the market was bright, glinting off metal roofs, and the crowd parted for someone new. A tall figure wearing the strange clothing of off-worlders. His skin was pale compared to hers, his hair a deep brown, and his eyes moved with curiosity rather than disdain. A human, he walked slowly, looking. At each stall, his eyes sharp but not unfriendly, the sellers called out to him, offering goods, praising their quality, but he seemed distracted, as if looking for something else. Then his gaze stopped on her. For a moment, Lyria froze, her hands still gripping a piece of fruit. She wasn't used to strangers noticing her. Not in a good way. He stepped closer, the noise of the market fading around them. "Hello," he said, his voice calm, warm. It was the kind of voice that made people listen. She hesitated. "Hello," she replied softly, almost unsure if she should speak at all. His eyes moved over the fruits. "These look good," he said, picking one up and smelling it. "How much?" She told him the price, expecting him to frown or haggle like others, but he simply nodded and placed a few coins in her hand. As she handed him the fruit, he looked at her properly for the first time, his eyes lingering on her face. And then, without hesitation, he said, "That smile of yours could stop a war." Lyria blinked, confused. She hadn't even realized she was smiling. And no one had ever spoken to her like that before. Not once. She felt heat rise to her cheeks, and she quickly looked down, unsure what to say. Her heart was beating faster, her chest tight. He didn't seem to notice her struggle, or maybe he did and didn't mind. He took a bite of the fruit, nodded with satisfaction, then glanced back at her stall. "I might come by again tomorrow," he said simply. Before walking away into the crowd, Lyria stayed still for a long time after he left, her fingers lightly touching the coins he had given her. It wasn't about the sale. It was about the words, the way he had said them, like he actually meant them. She could still hear his voice in her mind. "That smile of yours could stop a war." It sounded impossible, ridiculous even, but deep inside, a small spark of warmth lit up, a feeling she hadn't known for years. Around her, the market went on as usual, but the world felt slightly different from across the stalls. Two alien women watched her with narrowed eyes. One of them whispered something, the other laughed quietly. Lyria didn't hear the words, but she felt their stares, sharp and cold still. For the first time, she didn't lower her head. The sun shifted. Shadows stretched longer across the dusty ground. The day slowly moved toward its end. Yet the brief moment with the human stayed in her thoughts like a secret she wanted to hold close. She didn't know his name. She didn't know why he had chosen to speak to her, but a strange thought kept circling in her mind. Maybe, just maybe, she was not as unworthy as her people believed. And though she didn't realize it yet, This was the beginning of something that would change everything. The next morning, the market was busy again. The same loud voices, the same smells, the same endless movement of people. But for Lyria, it felt different. She stood behind her stall. With a strange energy in her chest, the memory of the human's words still warm inside her. She tried to tell herself it was nothing. Just a random comment, but no matter how much she tried, she could not push it away. The way he had looked at her had been different. Not like the others who saw her as less. It was almost like he had actually seen her. The morning passed slowly. Each time she heard footsteps that didn't sound like her people's. Her heart quickened. She told herself not to be foolish. Humans rarely visited the market 2 days in a row. But when the crowd shifted and the tall figure appeared again, she forgot to breathe. He walked directly to her stall this time. No looking. At other sellers, no hesitation. "Good morning," he said, and she noticed his smile. It was easy, natural, the kind of smile she had never received from her own kind. "Good morning," she replied, her voice a little steadier than yesterday. He looked at her fruit, then picked up 2 pieces. "These were good yesterday," he said. "I'll take more." She wrapped them for him, careful not to let her hands tremble. But when she handed them over, his fingers brushed hers, just for a moment. It was enough to make her skin feel warm. "So Lyria," he said, surprising her by using her name. "Do you always work in this part of the market?" She blinked. "How do you know my name?" He smiled. "It's written on the side of your stall, in your language. I asked another seller what it meant." For some reason, hearing her name in his voice felt different, softer, almost important. "I work here every day," she said. "There's not much else I can do." "Not much else?" he asked. Tilting his head, she hesitated, then sighed. "My people think I am not breeding material, so I am given small work. No one expects more from me." His expression changed, his brows pulled together. "That's ridiculous," he said simply. "You're worth more than any of them can see." She looked down quickly, afraid the heat in her cheeks would show. No one had ever told her something like that. Not with such certainty, from across the way. 2 alien men were watching, their faces twisted with something between anger and curiosity. One of them muttered to the other, and they both turned away. "You should be careful," Lyria whispered. "Some of them don't like humans talking too." "People like me," he shrugged. "Then I guess they'll just have to get used to it." The words were simple, but they hit her harder than she expected. Before he left, he said, "There's supposed to be a festival tomorrow. Will you be there?" She shook her head quickly. "No, it's not for me." He didn't push, just nodded. But the way his eyes lingered on her before he walked away made her heart beat faster. All day, the whispers around her were louder. Not because of insults this time, but because people had seen the human speak to her twice. Her people loved rumors, and by nightfall, half the market would probably be talking about it when she walked home that evening. The streets felt different, her steps lighter, her mind full of questions she couldn't answer. Who was he really? Why did he keep coming back? And why did his words make her feel like the air around her was easier to breathe? That night, she lay in her small room, staring at the ceiling, the sounds of the market still echoing faintly outside. But all she could hear clearly was his voice. She didn't know it yet, but someone else had also been listening. Someone who didn't like the idea of a human giving attention to a defective female. And the next day, that someone would make sure the human understood the rules of their world. The next morning, the market was even louder, the air filled with the beat of drums and the calls of sellers. Bright banners were hung across the paths, and the smell of roasted food drifted through the air. It was the day of the fertility festival. Lyria had woken before sunrise, but instead of excitement, there was only a heavy feeling in her chest. The festival was the grandest event of the year. yet she had never been part of it. Only the worthy females were invited to walk in the ceremony. The rest were expected to stay back and watch. From the shadows, she set up her stall as usual, pretending the music and cheering didn't bother her, but her eyes kept flicking toward the road leading to the festival square. She wondered if he would be there, the human, Evan. When the crowd parted and he appeared, she almost dropped the fruit she was arranging. He looked different today, wearing a clean, dark jacket and a small silver pin on his chest, the kind worn by honored guests. He smiled the moment he saw her, walking past a dozen calling vendors without slowing down. "I was hoping to see you," he said, and the warmth in his voice was like sunlight breaking through clouds. "You're going to the festival?" she asked quietly. He nodded. "They gave me an invitation yesterday. Said it was to show goodwill between our species." He paused, then added, "But I told them I'd only go if you came with me." Her hands froze over the basket of fruit. "I can't," she whispered. "I'm not invited." His smile didn't fade. "Then I'll invite you." Before she could respond, a shadow fell over the stall. She looked up to see a tall alien male with broad shoulders and sharp eyes, his skin marked with the golden tattoos of a high-caste warrior. "This human is speaking to you again," the male said in a low, dangerous voice. "Do you think you're better than you are?" Lyria lowered her gaze, but Evan didn't move. "I was speaking to a friend," he said calmly. The male's lips curled. "She is not your friend. She is nothing." Evan stepped forward, just enough to make the space between them tense. "Funny," he said. "She seems like someone worth knowing to me." The warrior's eyes narrowed, but he turned and walked away, the golden tattoos glinting in the sunlight. Lyria's hands trembled as she picked up another fruit. "You shouldn't have said that," she whispered. "I'm not here to play by their rules," Evan replied simply. The music from the festival square grew louder, voices rising in chants. A parade of decorated platforms moved down the main road, carrying the chosen females dressed in silver and gold. The crowd cheered as they passed. One of the platforms stopped. Right in front of them, a voice from above called down, "Human guest, your seat awaits." Evan glanced at Lyria. "Will you walk with me?" She shook her head again, fear pressing down on her chest. "If I go, they will laugh. They will throw things." "Then let them," he said, his eyes locked on hers. "I'll be right there beside you." Something in his tone made her hesitate. The crowd's noise faded for a moment in her ears, replaced by the steady beat of her own heart. Without fully knowing why, she stepped out from behind her stall, her legs trembling but moving forward. The moment she joined him, whispers surged through the crowd like a wave, some shocked, some mocking, but others curious. They walked toward the festival square together, the bright banners above them swaying in the warm wind. And for the first time in her life, Lyria felt every eye on her, not because of shame, but because someone had chosen her openly. She didn't know it yet, but this single walk beside a human would be the spark that set old traditions on fire. The festival square was a sea of colors and voices. Alien nobles draped in bright robes watched from high platforms, while the crowd below buzzed with excitement and whispers. Lyria's heart hammered as she stood beside Evan, feeling the weight of hundreds of eyes on her. The chosen females, tall and proud, paraded with confidence, their sharp features and strong bodies glowing under the sun. Some cast quick glances at Lyria, some with surprise, others with cold amusement. She held her head high, trying not to let the stares break her spirit. Then came the moment everyone had been waiting for. The challenge, a test of strength and skill, where males would prove their worth to the females they hoped to claim. The air grew tense as alien warriors stepped forward, flexing muscles, raising weapons, and shouting challenges. Evan looked out of place among them, shorter and thinner than the others, but his eyes burned with calm determination. When the announcer Called his name, a murmur swept through the crowd. A human. Some whispered, others laughed openly. He stepped into the arena without hesitation. And the challenge began. But it wasn't brute strength he used instead. Evan relied on quick thinking and strategy. He dodged the powerful strikes of a massive alien with surprising agility. Then tricked his opponent into falling into a trap he had prepared. The crowd gasped as the strong alien hit the ground hard, the laughter turning to whispers of disbelief. Lyria's heart swelled with pride. She saw the eyes of the females change, some narrowing in anger, others shining with new respect. The alien leader, a tall man with silver hair and piercing eyes, stepped forward, his voice loud and clear. "Human, your skill is unexpected. But tell us, who is your chosen companion?" "Among our females?" Evan's gaze met Lyria's without a flicker of doubt. "Lyria," he said simply. "She is the one I choose." A hush fell over the crowd, the announcement like a shockwave. Some gasped, others shouted protests. "You cannot choose her." "She is unworthy," cried a voice from the back. But Evan stood firm. "I choose who I respect and admire, not what your laws say." Lyria felt warmth spread inside her, the human's words giving her strength she had never known. The crowd's anger simmered but did not disappear. The alien leader raised a hand to silence them. "Very well," he said slowly. "If your choice is true, then prove it." He motioned to a heavy stone box at the edge of the arena. "Inside this box is a flower that blooms only on the highest cliffs, guarded by deadly beasts. Retrieve it, and your claim will be honored." Evan nodded. "We accept." Lyria's eyes widened. "Me? I have to go." He smiled together. The crowd watched as the human and the so-called defective female prepared to face the dangerous trial. Whispers turned to bets, some hoping they would fail, others curious to see what would happen as they left. The arena side by side, Lyria felt a new fire inside, not just from the challenge ahead, but from the human who had seen her worth when no one else did. The crowd's roar faded behind them as Lyria and Evan stood at the edge of the festival. Grounds the path ahead, winding steeply up the rocky cliffs. The air was sharp and cold, carrying the scent of distant flowers and danger. Evan glanced at Lyria, his eyes steady and sure. "We face this together," he said, his voice soft but full of strength. Lyria nodded, trying to steady her trembling hands. The fear inside her was thick. But with him beside her, it felt smaller. Less sharp, the cliff path was narrow and slippery. Loose stones crumbled underfoot, and every step made her heart pound louder. Strange cries echoed from the rocky crevices, warning of unseen predators. Suddenly, a low growl came from the shadows. And from the dark rock, a beast lunged, its eyes glowing like fire, sharp claws reaching out. Evan moved first, pulling Lyria behind a boulder, his hand gripping a metal rod from his belt. He struck the creature's leg with a quick, precise blow, causing it to yelp and retreat. Lyria watched, amazed at his calm under pressure. She felt her fear shift too. "Determination, we must keep moving," she whispered. They climbed higher, the path twisting like a serpent around the cliffside. The wind howled, threatening to push them off balance, but they held on, side by side. At last, they reached a small plateau where the rare flower grew, its petals shimmering with soft light, but the plateau was not empty. Another predator waited, larger and more terrifying, its eyes fixed on them. Lyria's breath caught. But Evan stepped forward. "We'll need a plan," he said calmly. "Distract it? I'll grab the flower." She nodded, heart racing, and with a shout, she threw a rock far to the side. The predator's gaze followed, giving Evan the moment he needed. He dashed forward, plucked the flower gently, and turned just as the beast realized the trick. Evan sprinted back to Lyria, the creature chasing, its steps thunderous. Together they ran, breath ragged, hearts pounding. But the path was narrow, and the beast was closing fast. At the edge of the plateau, Lyria slipped, sliding toward the cliff's edge. But Evan reached out, grabbing her arm and pulling her back just in time. They fell to the ground, panting, the flower safe in Evan's hand. The predator stopped at the edge, snarling but unable to follow. Lyria looked at Evan with a new respect. "I thought I was weak," she said quietly, "but today I felt strong." He smiled. "You've always had strength inside you. You just needed to see it." The journey back was slower, the sun dipping low, casting long shadows over the cliffs as they neared the festival grounds. A crowd gathered. Waiting, breath held, the alien leader stepped forward, taking the flower, inspecting it carefully. His face unreadable. Then he spoke. "You have passed." The trial, a murmur ran through the crowd, surprise mixing with respect. "Lyria, you are worthy," the leader declared, breaking the old silence. Lyria felt a warmth she had never known, acceptance, not for her body or size, but for her courage and spirit. Evan took her hand gently. "See, you are more than what," they said, and in that moment, surrounded by watching eyes, Lyria smiled without fear. The days after the trial were unlike any Lyria had ever known. Whispers followed her everywhere, but now they carried a different tone, not just of mockery, but of surprise and even respect. The alien society was shaken, old traditions questioned quietly in dark rooms. The idea that someone like Lyria could prove her worth was hard for many to accept, especially among the high caste. Evan stayed close. His presence a quiet shield against the growing storm, but not everyone was pleased. The warrior who had warned him before returned with others, their faces grim, voices low but threatening. "You have upset the balance," one of them said, "by breaking the rules. You bring danger to all of us." Evan looked at them calmly. "Sometimes rules need to change," he said, "or they become chains." The leader of the group stepped forward, an older alien with cold eyes. "We will not allow a human to change our ways, especially not through a defective female." Lyria felt a chill, but Evan took her hand. Grounding her, "I am not afraid," he said, "nor will I let fear control us." Word spread fast. And soon, Lyria found herself summoned to the council chambers, the place where the most powerful decided the fate of their people. The chamber was vast and cold, filled with towering figures clad in ceremonial armor, their eyes piercing, waiting for her to speak. One elder, his voice gravelly and sharp, addressed her. "You have broken with our customs, chosen a human over your own kind, and challenged our sacred laws. What say you for yourself?" Lyria swallowed, then spoke clearly. "I was told I was worthless, not fit to carry life or honor my people, but with Evan's words and actions, I have learned my value is more than what my body shows." A murmur ran through the chamber, some nodding, others scowling. Another elder stood. "Your actions bring shame to our ancestors, and you risk war between our species." Evan stepped forward. "War is born from fear and ignorance, but peace comes from understanding and respect." The room fell silent, the elders exchanging looks. Uncertain and uneasy, after long moments, the leader of the council spoke. "We will allow a vote to decide if your choice and actions are accepted or condemned." Lyria's heart pounded. The future of her life, her place, balanced on the decisions of strangers. The vote was close, voices raised, but in the end, the council accepted her trial's results, though grudgingly, as she left the chamber. Lyria felt a mix of relief and weariness, but also hope. Evan smiled gently. "This is only the beginning," he said. "But you have already changed more than you realize." Together, they stepped outside into the fading light, ready to face whatever came next. The morning sun spilled golden light over the city. Casting long shadows on the stone streets, Lyria and Evan walked side by side. Their steps steady despite the heavy weight of recent days. The council's decision had sent ripples through the alien society. Old customs began to bend under the pressure of change, whispers of acceptance mixed with resistance. But Lyria no longer felt alone or small as they passed through the market. Familiar faces turned to look. Some with respect, others still doubtful, but no one dared speak harshly anymore. The flower she had brought back from the cliff was a symbol, a new hope for many. Evan stopped at a quiet courtyard where soft music played and turned to Lyria. "You have shown courage and heart," he said. "You were never less than worthy." Lyria smiled, the warmth in her chest spreading. "Thanks to you, I see myself differently now." Before they could speak more, a messenger arrived. Breathless, carrying a sealed note, Evan broke the seal and read aloud. "The alien king summons you both to the palace. Your presence is required immediately." The words sent a ripple of tension through them. The king was the highest authority, his will absolute, and his summons rarely came without cause. They traveled through winding streets and towering gates, entering the grand palace where guards bowed silently. The halls shimmered with ancient tapestries and glowing crystals. The king awaited in a vast throne room, his eyes sharp but not unkind. He spoke. "I have heard of your trial, your courage, and the unrest you have caused among my people." Lyria bowed respectfully, her heart steady. "I only wish to live with honor and help bring understanding between our worlds." The king nodded slowly. "Change is never easy, but sometimes it is necessary," he said. "I offer you both a place here to help guide this new path, Evan." And Lyria exchanged surprised glances. The offer was more than they expected. A chance to build bridges and rewrite old rules outside. The city buzzed with news of their arrival. Hopes rising like the dawn as they stood together on the palace balcony, watching the world below. Lyria felt a new chapter beginning, filled with promise and challenge. She turned to Evan. "This is just the start," he smiled. Taking her hand, "Together, we can face anything." And with that, they stepped forward, ready to shape the future.